Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some students seem to breeze through school while others struggle with worries and self-doubt? This new study dives deep into the complex world of anxiety and how it connects to other things for students choosing different educational paths. Imagine school as a big web with all sorts of thoughts and feelings connected to each other. This research used something called network analysis to map out these connections, specifically focusing on anxiety and related traits in students' training for certain jobs. They wanted to figure out which connections are strongest and most important, because understanding this could help them find better ways to support students who feel anxious. So, the big idea here is that sometimes, especially in vocational schools, students might feel a bit less valued or more pressure. This can lead to anxiety, lower confidence, and other emotional struggles. The researchers wanted to see how different anxiety-related things, like self-esteem, what parents believe, and how well students adapt to school are all linked together in these students. To do this, they got a lot of students to fill out a bunch of questionnaires. We're talking about 28 different measures looking at things like how much they liked school, how anxious they felt, their self-regulation skills, what kind of achievement goals they had, how they adapted socially and emotionally, their self-esteem, parental pressure, and even their beliefs about intelligence. They collected data from over 9,000 students in different vocational tracks in France. They specifically looked at 4 groups: girls in nursing and care schools, girls and boys in sales and management schools, and boys in electricity and maintenance schools. Now, what did they find? Well, they confirmed some things we already suspected. Across the board, there were noticeable differences between boys and girls. For example, boys generally reported higher self-esteem and better math grades, which is a pretty common finding. On the flip side, girls tended to report more anxiety and were more sensitive to making mistakes. Interestingly, girls were also more likely to aim for mastery goals, meaning they wanted to learn and improve, while boys had a more mixed approach. But the really cool part is what happened when they looked at the network connections. They found that the way these anxiety-related traits are linked together wasn't exactly the same for everyone. The structure of these connections, including which traits were most central or influential, showed some differences between boys and girls. Think of it like different wiring diagrams for different groups. Some connections might be thicker or more direct for one group than another. They identified specific traits as being particularly central or influential for different groups. For girls in nursing and care schools, feeling competent in math was a really important connection point. For girls in sales and management, it was their ability to self-regulate, meaning they could manage their tasks and focus. And for boys in both the electricity and sales tracks, it was their mastery approach goals, that desire to learn and master the material. So what does this all mean? This network approach is super helpful for planning future studies. It helps researchers come up with educated guesses about how different traits influence each other and how interventions might ripple through the entire system. For example, if they decide to target a specific trait, they can make predictions about which other traits are likely to be affected and how. They notice that certain traits, like how much students perceived their parents to be dissatisfied with their schoolwork, ended up in different clusters for boys and girls. For boys, this dissatisfaction was linked to things that inhibit achievement, like anxiety and error sensitivity. But for girls, it was in a bigger, mixed cluster. This shifting affiliation is interesting because it suggests these traits can act as gatekeepers, controlling how different parts of the network influence each other. This is a really important point. If a student feels their parents are unhappy with their school performance, this can act like a barrier, preventing the positive parts of the network from helping the negative ones. The good news is, studies have shown that we can actually change how students perceive parental dissatisfaction. By helping adolescents reframe challenges and encouraging supportive parent-child conversations, we can reduce the distress linked to feeling like parents are unhappy. This is especially important for vocational students. The findings also suggest that interventions designed to improve student well-being might not directly hit all the problem areas. For example, if you give an intervention to girls in the nursing track, it might first affect things closely related to math self-concept, like math grades or motivation, before spreading out to other areas. It might not immediately impact something like parental dissatisfaction if they're not closely linked within that specific network. This highlights that interventions need to be tailored to the specific group. The study points to practical implications. The key traits that showed the most influence varied across the groups, suggesting different intervention targets. Mastery approach goals. the desire to learn and improve stood out as a central trait for everyone. This is because it's linked to deeper learning, increased motivation, and better persistence. The good news is that these goals can be influenced through educational interventions, like using interactive activities or focusing on mastery during learning. This is a really promising area for intervention. For females in the nursing and care track, self-perceived math competence was a key trait. Even though this isn't a math-focused major, research suggests that feeling confident in math is important for these professions. Stereotypes and past negative experiences can lead to math anxiety, which can undermine confidence. So improving girls' confidence in math could boost their overall achievement and well-being. For females in the commerce track, self-regulation was a highly influential trait. This is about the ability to focus, organize, and manage one's studies. Research shows women tend to score higher in conscientiousness, which is related to self-regulation, and this trait is a strong predictor of academic success. It seems that for these students, their ability to plan and focus is crucial for their success. This study is also really good at pointing out the limitations of some interventions. It suggests that targeting one trait might mainly affect others within the same cluster of interconnected traits, rather than spreading to every other trait in the network. This means we need to be smart about which traits we target and expect what kind of effects. Now, it's important to talk about what this study can tell us, because this is a network analysis. It's great at showing connections, but it can't definitively say what causes what. We can infer potential causal links based on previous research, but we need more studies that follow students over time, or specifically test interventions to really understand cause and effect. Also, like many studies, there were some measures that weren't as reliable as others. This could mean that the connections involving those specific traits might not be as clear as they could be, and we might have missed some important links. Another limitation is that they only looked at vocational students. We don't know how these networks compare to those in general education schools. So, while we can say things about vocational students, we can definitively say they're more anxious or have different connections than students in other types of schools without that comparison group. Here is the big takeaway. This research has provided a detailed map of how anxiety and related traits are connected for male and female vocational students in different fields. They found that while there are common patterns, there are also distinct differences that depend on gender and the specific type of education. The study highlights that focusing on mastery approach goals that desire to learn and improve is a really promising intervention target for all students. Additionally, for female students, improving self-regulation and their confidence in math are key areas to consider. Finally, they've shown us that the path from things like school anxiety to academic performance is often much more complicated than we might think. It's not just a simple cause and effect, but rather a series of interconnected steps with multiple variables working together. This complex understanding is crucial for developing more effective ways to support students. So what's next? This research sets the stage for more targeted interventions. By understanding these intricate networks, educators and psychologists can design programs that are more likely to have a positive ripple effect on students' overall well-being. Future studies can now build on these findings to test out specific interventions and see if targeting these central nodes truly leads to better outcomes for vocational students. What do you all think about these connections? Are there any of these traits that you feel are particularly important in your own lives or experiences? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science adventures, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.